up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Anthony from Capstan here. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So the newest album is Restless Heart, Keep Running, which came out last year. It was number 3 on our top albums of 2019 list. What I really want to know is, what was the thought process going into the making of this record? Was there a preconceived idea? Was there a lot of improvising? What was like the thought process in the making of that album?
Okay, so it's kind of based on how we work when we write. We always get the music down first, and then we kind of collaborate with lyrics, and we always bring something to the table. And basically, what happens is Joe will bring a riff, and we will work off of that riff, and then he'll go home and say, "Okay, everybody loves it," and he will continue writing the song, bring it back, we produce it, and then as soon as we get the music squared away, we use Guitar Pro for writing. And he'll bring that to the table, and if we all agree on it, he will demo it, because Harry has this nice little home studio. And so with Restless Heart, we had all of those songs together, and we brought them to Andrew Wade, and like we had basically finished songs when we went into the studio, and we kind of had Andrew Wade take a listen and produce them. We did like a pre-production. So I think the only thing that was really done like only in the studio was the intro track, and I believe Bury the Hatchet was also done there. So
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you wrote a song based on how you write an album. So maybe when like interviewers ask you like, what's the songwriting process like, you could just present them with that album and all their questions are answered right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And honestly, we've been working heavily on some new music as well recently, just with the downtime we've had. So
awesome. Could Live Bait, the latest single you released, I know that was kind of a B-side off of Restless Heart, but like, can that maybe serve as like maybe a quick little preview on the direction that Capstan is going in, or does one thing have nothing to do with the other?
It's definitely different, but I would say that I think we're kind of moving to a heavier direction. Maybe not exactly like that, but it was great because the time that we had off, and we're like, well, what do we do? We're not touring. So we're like, hey, we have this. We play it live. Our fans love it. They always ask about it. So I said, well, why don't we record that and we can release that? And it just ended up working out. Even though it was a B-side, we never actually planned to record it.
Yeah.
But,
well, you never know if the B-side could end up being the biggest hit you guys ever had. You never know.
It's true. It's true. You just want to get the music out there. And the fans like it, so why not?
Yeah. One thing I'm curious about is actually one thing I also loved about Live Bait was the music video for it. Actually was a great way to remember, better times than what we're currently living in.
Oh yes, yeah. We our photographer Dieter, he actually had all of that footage from when we were touring, and it was like, hey, let's just throw it all together. And it kind of shows the fun side of our band. Like, we're very serious and we take music seriously, but we love to have fun. And I think that showcases that a bit, and I think it was a great song to do that too.
Yeah, I almost feel like, did you see what everybody was doing with the Harm's Way videos on Facebook and like clipping it with a different song? I almost feel like you could put that song with the Harm's Way videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I've noticed that, like, especially on Restless Heart, it's fair to say you guys are a very experimental band, right? Like, you guys like to try new things, because a song like We'll Always Have Paris is very different from a song like Terminal, very different from a song like I'll Bury the Hatchet When They Bury You. So it's fair to say you guys like to experiment and try new things when making music, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the forefront of that would be our guitarist, Joe. He's pretty good at guitar for what I know. I don't know anything about guitar, and just his writing habits and the way that he does things. I feel like it's kind of a smooth blend of like all of the genres that we like to listen to, and we try not to force it either. But yeah, we do like to mess around, experiment. Like, we like all types of music, so we try to put it in ours.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one thing I was curious about is, I know you said that lyrics always do have to come last, but has there ever been a time where maybe like an experience or a story or even a subject matter could help influence the composition or the arrangement of the songs?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So we all will write lyrics and bring them to the table, and then we'll mess with them from there, but we never want to change what it's trying to say. It's just how it fits in the song a bit better. You know, we might change some words that don't change the meaning of what the person is trying to say.
Okay.
So absolutely, yeah. There's many cases of heartbreak and, you know, lost loved ones, and that we write about from our own personal experiences, and then people will add to it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you like to leave the lyrics open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into what you guys are particularly singing about?
I feel it's almost specific to each song. We try to, we get much more specific in like our verses and things like that, but I really do think that music should be open to interpretation, because even if you're not going through the same problems that we're actually writing about, if it helps you in any way, emotionally, mentally, physically, that I feel like that's what music is about. So I would say overall we would like to keep it open to interpretation of how they want to view the song.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like your lyrics are both very metaphorical and very literal. I feel like you have both like a figurative and a more metaphorical way of writing lyrics. It's not like you have like a one-size-fits-all methodology, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I'm curious about is, like, when it comes to experimenting with your sound and stuff, is there ever like a preconceived idea, like we need to do something heavier, we need to do something more melodic, or does it kind of, in a way, just like happy accidents or something like that?
I would say that after recording that album and putting it out into the world, we were at a crossroads for a minute, and we're like, you know, these are great songs, but do we need to pick a lane? Do we have to, you know, do we need to say, okay, let's go a little more metalcore, or let's bring it back and do it soft? And I think what we agreed on is chorus. The choruses just have to be great, and you know, you can experiment in the verses and such. And I feel like that's kind of more of how we would do it, rather than like being like we got to get heavier. But we just kind of like, if it sounds great, then we write to it, you know, and I think we got a solid amount of songs that we're happy with, and just from hearing it, it's like, that sounds really cool. I like that riff, or I love this verse, and that's kind of where we're going from now. Restless Heart, I think we had a lot of really good songs, but some of the time the structure was a bit different. So what we're trying to do is kind of hone in on kind of a song structure that we really like.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I mean, if we're listening to a song that's super heavy versus a song that's very, very melodic, is it almost kind of like, depending on what the song sounds like, it's almost expressing like a different side of you? Like, do you sometimes maybe feel like, and not to discredit your role as a vocalist by any means, but like, do you think maybe if the songs were instrumental, they could convey that emotion like just as much in a way as well?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that we, like, if the part calls for it, is when we'll do what it is that we do. So if we have a bunch of different types of instrumental parts in the music, like if it's a heavier part, like it calls for screaming, but we don't want to pull away from putting melody in there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
I think you have a versatile vocal style. And like a band like Astronoid, for example, like they write like black metal riffs, but they're singing like shoegaze, like The Cure, like vocals over it. So
right.
So I almost feel like that you guys are in a way like at a limitless point in terms of your style.
And definitely have come a long way, because I have never sang in a band until this one. So all of the practice and playing and everything has brought me to now. But I mean, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. So,
I think the same can be said for every single artist in history.
Yeah, I played drums in bands before, and I just happened to be like, hey, can I try this out? Because we started as a recording project at first, and I'm like, let me just lay down these vocals then. And that's kind of how it started out.
Oh, really? So you're like a metalcore Dave Grohl.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good compliment, by the way. Thank you.
Anytime. Well, when you look at the entirety of the Capstan catalog, from Restless Heart, Keep Running to In the Wake of Our Discord to even the Cultural Divide EP, like, is it almost kind of like representative of who you and Joe and everybody in the band are at that particular time? Is it almost kind of like a photo album in a way?
Yes, absolutely. I feel that Cultural Divide and In the Wake of Our Discord kind of go together. just because they're the EPs. We recorded with Seth Henderson, and during that time, we were still trying to figure out where we were going as, in the band. And Restless Heart being the first full length we've ever done, I think it's also representative of the time that we were in at that point when we were writing those songs. So, yes, absolutely, to answer your question.
Yeah, so if somebody just wants to get on board with Capstan, like after Restless Heart came out, I was, I was like the annoying salesman, just telling everybody at every single Under Oath or While She Sleeps tour, just saying you got to check out Capstan. But like, do you feel that maybe the best direction or like the best point for a listener to discover you guys is on Restless Heart, or could a listener approach you guys from any different angle at this point?
I feel that they could approach us from any different angle, but I would like to say Restless Heart because it's our latest and it was the most recent of the creation that we made. I mean, Stars Before the Sun is probably one of my favorite tracks on the album, and that was a single before we even released that. But that would be I think that's a good base to when you hear that. If you like what you hear there, you can find those elements in any of our songs, more of each.
Yeah. Of course. So. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I stumble every artist with this, and that's why I always love asking it. How do you know when a song is done?
Oh, wow. I guess for how we've been writing quite a bit during this downtime. So my answer to that question would be the song is done when we have all of our lyrics placed and we're happy with every single part. And we can literally write complete on the bounce when we bounce it from Pro Tools. And even so, it's not even done because that's just us demoing it. So that is an actually really hard question because, yes, it's done to us, but we're going to take it somewhere and be like, this is what we have. This is how we thought it should be. Do you find anything that could be slightly changed or reworked if we need it?
Yeah.
So I guess the song is done when we leave the studio. Like that day, it's complete in the studio, and they're going to mix it. I guess that would be it, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, I'd imagine that once mixing and post-production and everything, that's a whole new line of experiments as well, right?
Oh, yes, post-production, like adding any type of production element, like chimes, shaker, all that, it's just adding to the song constantly. And it is hard with the digital age because you can always just go back and be like, yeah, I think we should add more, and you can sit on it for too long sometimes. Yeah. In my opinion. So.
Yeah. And one drum beat or one riff is all it could take to either, push the song further into the stratosphere or like maybe ruin it too.
Exactly. Well. Yes. Like, I don't know about this part, it sounds too boring. Oh, let's change it. And then it's like, okay, well now it's too busy. Let's change it. And you just keep doing that until eventually everyone's just like, yeah, I think that'll work for now. And then you can wait for 3 weeks and come back to it and say, you know what, I don't know if I like that. Let's change it again.
Yeah, OCD in the recording studio has got to be the worst combination ever.
It is rough because I think musicians as a whole pretty much are all kind of perfectionists in a way. And like nothing is ever perfect, so it's hard to get to attain that,
Yeah, but I mean, there's also elements where some bands are they try to be more raw and more organic. Some bands try to be more polished or whatever. I think really in the end it depends on the style, it depends on the band. It's like no band's recording process is the same, and I will fight anybody who disagrees.
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely different, and it also depends on how you buy this band too. Like, if is it just straight work? Are you friends? Do you like the same music? Is it, there's a lot that goes into it. So I absolutely agree with that. Not a single band has the same process when they're recording.
Of course. When it comes to playing live, I have yet to see you guys live. I'm hoping, after this whole bullshit is over, that maybe you guys can come to New York City one day. But
yes.
I've yet to see you guys live. But after watching the Live Bait music video, it's clear that you thrive on crowd interaction. It seems like a Capstan show is a great time for you. Is there maybe a similar energy into playing live as there is when you're songwriting, or is playing live and songwriting completely two different creative entities?
Absolutely, two different creative entities. When I'm playing live, all I'm thinking about is how I can give the crowd the best experience. And when I'm recording, it's like, this is forever. This will always be out there in the world. So it's hard for me because I give it my all every single time that that I'm performing live. But when you're recording like in the studio and things like that, it's like I need to make sure that this is perfect. This has to be the best take. I have to deliver exactly how I'm feeling, how the lyrics are calling for the feel. And a show, it's like one and over. And it's kind of hard because you can spend so much time in the studio, but you only get one show a night when you're on tour. And who knows, with the elements and everything, my instrument is my body. So it's tough sometimes, and I might have a bad show, but regardless if I'm feeling good or not, it's going to be the best that it can be for the people that paid to be there that night.
Mm-hmm. I'd imagine there has to be a similar fulfillment factor, like you walk off the stage after a good show the same way you walk out of the studio after a good day, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Well, and when it comes to playing the material live, like being that, there's so much crowd interaction and, insanity and you're moving around, do you try to execute it exactly like how people would hear it on the album, or do you try to maybe change things up a little bit, keep things in suspense?
So I try to keep it as close to the album as possible, but there are some songs that I didn't even realize I was doing it in, where I kind of change a melody a little bit here or don't hold something as much there, but I try to keep the same intensity as if they were listening to the album.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course. But, I interviewed a Mark Morton from Lamb of God, and he says, he disagrees with the term don't write stuff that you can't replicate live, because in the end, it's always going to be a different experience when you're in front of an audience, and depending on the venue as well. So I thought maybe that, depending on venue size, depending on the crowd, that could also alter the way you execute the material.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Some of the things, like if there's... sometimes that you can always change a tuning or something like that if you're having a rough day or whatever, but we try to keep it as close as we possibly can. But it really is about the show. It's like, okay, this music is out here, but in the show, are we going to be able to replicate it? And if we can't, why would we just try and do it and sound bad for the people that are in front of us right then? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I if it sounds good to be able to record, you should do that, because you have 15, 16 takes. You have the time to do that. When you're at a show, you have that one moment for that song. And if it's not good enough, then people are going to be like, well, that's not what I came for. That's not what I paid for,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that Eminem song, Lose Yourself, gets more and more real with every band I interview and ask that question about.
Really? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have two more questions for you. But going back to the songwriting, do you find it easier to come up with lyrics or come up with ideas when you're kind of alone? Isolation's always the greatest feel for art. Or do you prefer to be in the company of your other bandmates in order to, get the ideas and get the arrangements flowing?
Being alone. So what we do is when we are working on vocals, especially during the demo process, everybody goes home, and it's like, okay, what juice did you bring us today? And, everyone will bring their ideas to the table, and we go through them. And it's like, okay, well, these lyrics really pop for this song, so let's try and figure out a rhythm or a meter for it in the song. And then sometimes as well, we won't even have lyrics, we'll just bring a melody. So, but I think alone is definitely easier to write than when you're all together.
Do you need to be alone in a certain element, like in a certain room or a place? Does inspiration ever come out of the blue, too?
Sometimes it comes out of the blue. Other times it's just, just keep writing. Just write whatever you can, and if you think it's good enough, then bring it to the table, and then, I have all four of the other guys going, I don't know about that. I don't think that will work for this. It's like, okay, then you go back to the drawing board. But, it's almost spot writing, but it has to come from somewhere inside.
Of course.
Yeah.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is you guys are, I know the band originated in Orlando, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, Florida in itself, Florida is the death metal capital of the world. It's the home to Trivium and Camelot and Under Oath and so many amazing bands to even count. Is there kind of like a scene in your region of Florida that you guys kind of cut your teeth in, or was the goal for Capstan to kind of get outside your state lines a little bit more in order to get the name out there?
I think it was kind of both. And, that brings me to kind of a bit of a background. we all lived in the same house for a while, and we called it the Capstan House. And for our scene, some of the venues and things, kids weren't coming out. Like there's a promoter that didn't show up at one of these shows, so we were like, you know what? We have a big house that we all rent together. Let's put a show on. So eventually, the Capstan House kind of became ingrained in the music scene, and we would have 80 plus kids coming to shows in our living room. We've had touring bands. We had touring bands just stay even if there wasn't a show. Like, hey, if you need a place to crash, you need laundry, showers, a place to sleep, like, come through. And it was pretty iconic for us at that point. It helped us get our name out in Orlando, and I miss those days a lot. But then, at one point it's like, okay, now we need to move this to other areas. We want to make this, like, everyone in the band, I can speak for them, wanted to be in a touring band professionally with music, working on music and going. So we bought a van in 2015, and we did our first tour, and we kind of just never stopped after that until just now, which we wish we were on the road anyway. But yeah, so we did have a decent scene, and kids would always come out, and I think a lot of our fans in Orlando could think back to those days and remember them. I mean, hell, our photographer, Dieter, he played in one of his bands as a drummer, came through the Capstan House before we knew him like we do now.
That's amazing. I feel like the Capstan House, first off, you need to try to make that your own venue. Like, that sounds like a legit venue right now, the Capstan House. It just rolls right off the tongue. That needs to be a venue. That'll be the CBGBs of Orlando.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Or at least make another music video like what Live Bait was and show it in the Capstan House.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we moved on from it. It's no longer ours. But honestly, I don't know how we got away with running that house and having that many shows with all of those people and never once got in trouble for it.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I wasn't sure if that question was too controversial. Like, did any cops show up to that, or?
Yeah, they have before, but they were very nice, and it was because one of our neighbors. We lived in a cul-de-sac. One of our neighbors was like, "Hey, somebody parked, and then they're blocking my driveway." So the cops came up, and they were just like, "Yeah, you just got to move your car." But they were very cool. We never no one ever got in trouble, So.
That is amazing, and I'm seething. And a lot of little underground promoters are probably seething with envy hearing that.
Yeah, I do miss the place. We don't have it much anymore, but I mean, also we've been touring a lot too, and we hardly play Orlando unless we're on tour. So it's kind of strange, actually. Yeah.
Well, now the van, and you went from the Capstan House to the Capstan van. You got to try to maybe do something similar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get a van that's like Transformers, and then turn it into a stage of some sort.
Which would be sick. They did that at Warped.
Oh, sweet. So
they got the truck that turns into a stage.
So fact of the matter is, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else with Capstan you would like to promote? Obviously, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named.
Yes.
I'd imagine that once all this is over, though, we'll be seeing you guys on the road quite a bit, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of what we want to do. Just let's tour. Let's see the U.S. Let's see the world. Let's keep going. Make as many fans and friends as we can. And I guess I would say just follow us on socials if you're listening to this, Capstan Band for Instagram and Twitter. And I can't wait to be back out there on the road doing what I love.
And we're looking forward to you guys coming to New York City.
Absolutely. I love it there.
Awesome. But thank you so much, Anthony. Everybody, we are here with Anthony of Capstan. Be sure to pick up Restless Heart, Keep Running. If you haven't already, check out the new music video for Live Bait. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.